Okay, real talk. Lady is finally asleep next to me in her car seat. And I thought, okay, this is my moment to shine and pop on and record a little something for you. This episode that you are about to listen to is so fantastic. I recorded it a few months ago, so some things are going to sound like they're in the past. So bear with me. But I've been sitting on this one because it's so amazing and so moving. And we pack so much information and love and energy in one podcast. It's with the fabulous Erwin Benedict Valencia, aka the godfather of gratitude. This human is so amazing. I talk about the story of how we met. We met online through a app called Clubhouse that was a voice-activated app. And I got to actually meet him in person, one of the few people who was in like a COVID bubble that we were all meeting up with at the time. And Erwin is now on his way in the Philippines, living his best life. Some people know him as the godfather of gratitude. Some people know him for his work with the New York Knicks. He shares an intimate story about Phil Jackson. And if you know me, I'm a super fan of basketball. I'm a super fan of the 90s Chicago Bulls and 2000s Lakers. And I'm the biggest fan of Phil Jackson, the best coach and spiritual human being of our generation. I feel like he's just everything. So I thought this was such a perfect episode to get us ready and get us prepped for Thanksgiving. It's the perfect way for us to really sit in our gratitude, to give each other grace. Thanksgiving is really hard for a lot of people. I know it's been very hard for me at times, where I love my family and I would do anything in the world for them. But sometimes your family and your extended family may not know that you are in a dark place, or you're feeling very heavy, or you're dealing with mania and you're trying to just swallow it and act like everything's okay. And it can be very triggering for people because one little comment, whether it's meant to be passive aggressive or not, can really send you down a spiral. So that's why I'm sitting on this episode and I was saving it, because if you're having a tough time, if you're not feeling heard, if you're not feeling seen, this is just something where you can take an hour, sit back, relax, and listen to someone who really has stepped into their own, have helped thousands and thousands of people really understand what gratitude is and how to find peace within yourself. He is just everything and more. And I really hope that this episode brings a sense of healing and love and kindness and grace and gratitude to you. So thank you so much once again for listening to this podcast, for giving it the 5 stars or however many stars you feel it's worthy of, and leaving comments and writing in. It's just been such a dream for me. See, now I'm going to get all mushy and crying. It's been such a dream for me to still be able to have this form of connection to you. I didn't know if I would be able to continue it with having a baby. It's been a lot, but in moments of Lady taking a nap or moments of my mom or husband watching her, I have been able to continue on with this journey. And I feel like it's our journey together, because you've come with me along this entire ride of being, just in a relationship, to then marriage, to then pregnancy, to then birth, to now this new stage that I'm in of finding out who I really am, reconnecting with myself and re-finding the identity I'm looking for. I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I hope it's blessed. I hope it's not triggering or not too triggering. But just know, at the end of the day, you're not alone. You have me. You have emotional support. You have a community. And I love you so much. I hope you enjoy this episode. Give Erwin a follow. And he is so great with social media in responding to people too. He's really fantastic. So give him a reach out and let him know what you thought of the episode. And have a blessed, wonderful Thanksgiving. I love you so much, and thank you for being my emotional support.
Welcome to Emotional Support. Thank you for joining us. And now, here's your host, Alessandra Torresani.
Oh my gosh, Erwin Valencia. Do you go by Benedict? Because you have it written down, so I never knew that.
Yeah, my full name is Erwin Benedict, and the story of that is that there's actually another Erwin Valencia that lives in the New York tri-state area.
What?
That happens to also be a Filipino.
What?
That happens to work in the mental performance space. That happens to be, I think, a former Navy SEAL, and that happens to like also spend time in Tampa, Florida. So
What?
it's too kind of eerie.
No.
It's too
Well,
eerie.
the Tampa, Florida thing is really specific.
Yeah, very specific.
That's the best part. Well, let me start this over. Erwin Benedict Valencia, welcome to Emotional Support. I am so thrilled that you're here. This podcast is truly a couple years in the making where we've been trying to do this. And of course, now we do it right when you like are about to go off the grid and never speak to anyone ever again, I'm sure. Like, let me just preface this. So
for at least a year, just for at least a year,
so
just a
when
year.
we decided to do this interview, you're like, right, we have to do it really fast because like I'm kind of like going away and then I'm going to be like gone. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Like I didn't understand what was going on. So I can't wait to get into what you're doing for this next coming up year because for all intents and purposes, you're like going to space and you're going to be back when I'm like 80 years old or something. So we're just going to pretend that that's what it is. But Erwin, the best part I think about you is I've met you in person once. But we met originally virtually during the pandemic through Clubhouse, which is that still in existence anymore? I don't even know. Maybe.
Well, I think there's still people that still kind of go. I have to say that Gratitude Gang, obviously
Right.
the club that I founded over there, has a community of about 50,000 people,
Wow.
and that's kind of stagnant. People still click into
Sure.
it to be part of the community, even though most of what we've done now rather than Clubhouse has been on Twitter Spaces. So there's people from the community that I'm not even there, and they do gratitude sessions on Mondays and Fridays every week still.
Wow. Well, that's so fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, you just like who you are in person and on a phone, which was like, for those who didn't know what Clubhouse was, it was a voice activated like app. It was like Twitter Spaces if you're a part of that. And you resonate the same energy on a phone, right? With no face, nothing, like no expressions, as you do in real life. And I think that that's something that's so rare and so magical. And that is why so many people really, truly have such love for you, even if they don't know you, as a best friend or anything. Like you have this energy to you. And I just want to know, like, have you had that since you were a baby? Did you have this like kind of Elvis complex, as I like to call it, those like who are like, people are drawn to babies and you're like, I have no idea why, but like I'm drawn to this person because they just have this energetic beautifulness to them. Did you always have this?
You know what's funny is you say the Elvis complex.
Yeah.
Is that what you said? Elvis complex? You know what's ironic is that I was actually supposed to be named Elvis.
No.
So my grandmother, who actually asked, I'm the firstborn of the youngest son between my grandmother and my grandfather. And my grandmother on my dad's side was one of the biggest Elvis fans in the Philippines. So big that when my grandfather was the Secretary of Public Works and Highways, he actually purchased the Mercedes limo that Elvis used when he visited the Philippines for his concert.
You are kidding. Super fan.
Like super fan. And so she told my dad, it's like, when you have your firstborn, I want the firstborn's name to be Elvis if it's a boy. My dad's like, no. My mom's like, I think it'd be okay.
Honestly,
My
it
dad's
could
like,
have worked.
no,
It
it's not
could
gonna
have worked.
happen.
Elvis
Not,
Benedict Valencia, I'm not mad at it. I'm really not mad at it. I'm into it.
that'd be so Filipino, though. That'd be so Filipino to be called Elvis Benedict Valencia. Way too Filipino. It's so typical Filipino to do that. So not only is it ironic that my name would have been that, but number two, I think I've always had that. I've always resonated in me. I think I was born a happy baby, an active baby, somebody that wanted to like. My mom would say that I have a, I have I, when I was born, I had a mole on my foot,
Mm,
and in Filipino lore, if you
sure.
must, that means that you're going to be in a sense, lakwachero, or somebody who's going to be walking the
Oh,
earth
wow.
basically for the rest of his life. That's like a free spirit if you
Oh,
must. And so
wow.
that was since I was little. My mom was like, "Oh, this one's going to be trouble because he has a mole on his foot and he's just going to keep constantly going."
Cut to
So.
after this interview, I'm going to go look if my daughter's foot has a mole on it because I can't recall, but I'm like, maybe it does. And I haven't looked close enough, even though I probably have. Oh my God, that's so exciting. Now, were you born in the Philippines or were you born in the States?
I was born here. I was born in a town called Passaic, New Jersey.
Okay.
That was where the hospital was. But at that time, my mom was living in Lodi, New Jersey, with my dad. She was going to business school at Fairleigh Dickinson, which is business school right in the Teaneck, New Jersey area, while working as an admin assistant to my great uncle, who was this amazing town doctor
Wow.
cardiologist that really became the cornerstone of my mom and dad's wish for who I was going to be, because not only was he a renowned physician, he also served the community practically for free in Lodi, New Jersey, all the way till his death. I mean, he was a
Wow.
guy that he did his fellowship and residency in Mount Sinai in New York, and then he did it under a student visa in a sense. And so when his time was almost done, even when he was in Lodi, he was already taking care of the neighbors, so to
Wow.
speak, on his own, just for free. And when his time was done and the INS came knocking on his door, to take him out, it was his neighbors that grouped together, signed a petition, lobbied it to the senator, and the senator petitioned him personally. And
Oh
he
my
ended up getting a green
gosh.
card because of it. And you would think that after that, somebody would be like, oh, okay, I got it good now. I can go wherever. No, he decided to stay in Lodi and continues to even take care of people in town until the day he died.
Oh my gosh.
So
How where is that story? Someone needs to make a movie out of that. That is
I
incredible.
know.
Wow. No, that's
I
so
know, I know.
beautiful.
But on the flip side, my father, who was in the US doing his on the job training or postgraduate, he went to business school at the Harvard of Japan and ended up in a Japanese firm in Wall Street. And he, on the other hand, looked at my great uncle as like the guy who was like the man because he always changed his cars every 2 years and he had the Cadillac that my dad loved. Later, only for me to find out that he was basically leasing
No.
them and it was a tax write off. Basically, if my great, like if you're a physician and you're using a
Yeah.
car, that's a business expense
Sure.
and that's a tax write off. That's why you change every 2 years because you don't want a car getting old because then, from a business standpoint, that doesn't make sense.
No.
So my father, who thought that, hey, he just paid cash for cars every 2 years, I'm like, Pop, that's a lease.
You're like, Dad,
That's a
that's at
lease.
least Cadillac. That's a
You basically tricked me my entire life and in a sense forced me to get into medicine thinking that great uncle Henry bought cash with the cars by cash every 2 years, but really he leased it. But you got me
but
though.
you
You
got
got
me.
me.
But
So
I have to say, there's something about families who are like parents. Like I just remember like my dad and like his family, like it was all about like American cars, Cadillacs. Like if you had a Cadillac, you've made it, right? And my dad like
yes.
constantly had Cadillacs. And like if you look at and I'm Italian, right? So if you look at the old like mobster movies, right? They're always like Lincolns, they're always in Cadillacs. Like there's something like you've made it in America. Like you're a true-blooded American if you have a
Oh yeah.
Cadillac or a Lincoln.
Like that big car with the springy seats. It's like that's America.
That's
You're
American
you
made,
made it.
Oh my
You
gosh,
made
that
it.
is
Yeah.
so funny. Now, I have to ask, how did you become the godfather of gratitude? Was this something that you did? I mean, I obviously want to get into the NBA and sports because everyone that listens to this podcast knows, like, in my life, I'm obsessed with the NBA. So we will get into that. But, like, obsessed. But I mean, is this something that, obviously we now know that you were completely born with this Elvis complex, as we're gonna say, the Elvis Benedict Valencia complex. That's what I'm gonna say it is. Um, but, did you always know, like, I know that you got into medicine, but did you know, like, wow, this is where it comes down to, this is the base? Was this something that you were taught from your family? Like, where does that even come from, gratitude?
At such a young age, growing up in the Philippines, you already born with the awareness that when you step outside your door, you step outside your gate, you will see the difference between those that have and those that have not.
Mm,
And we were constantly reminded of how fortunate we were to have.
gotcha.
That said, because we did have, we were also reminded to make sure that we gave back to those that have not.
Oh.
And I think my grandfather, who was a public servant, he was a governor of a province, and then he became the undersecretary of public works and highways. He always served his
Mm,
people in the right way. And my father, who going to college in Japan, when he came back to the Philippines, he served the Filipino people by making sure that trade relations between the Philippines and Japan were in tip top shape on a
wow.
regular basis. And then for me, weirdly enough, I've always been the guy that always took care of people. And I nurtured community and I nurtured people around me. And if anyone need anything, I was one of the first guys that says, I got you. I got you what you need. You need advice. You need so a shoulder to cry on. I was always that person. And then I think that came from the fact that from the beginning on, we were reminded to be thankful because we were lucky.
Hmm.
And I think that's where it all stems from, which is ironic because I'm going back to the Philippines next week. There's an award given called the Multi Generational Award to alumni of the University of the Philippines, where my grandfather, my father, and I all went to school,
Wow.
given to three generations of alumni that not only had amazing careers in what they did in their life, but also that they continued to serve their people. And it's really kind of
Wow.
it's telltailing from where I've come from in my life and from
Sure.
my family's lineage of servant leaders, where
Sure.
that comes from inside of me. And the Godfather part is funny because I think, number one, technically it's supposed to be older brother. So in Filipino, the term is kuya. Kuya means older. I'm an older brother to everyone in the Filipino community. I'm an older brother to all the new people that are coming in the world of sports and wellness and in the NBA, and
Yeah.
particularly if you're Asian American and if especially more if you're Filipino, I'm the guy that says, hey, I'll take care of you. What do you need? How can I make your experience better?
Sure.
So technically it's kuya, but also because of that, those who have family and have kids, I've become the number one godfather material for everybody.
Oh.
Literally, I don't even remember. I feel bad. I think I have more than 10 godchildren.
Oh
I
my God.
don't even remember which ones they all are. Some of them are just going to I think I'm going to go back to the Philippines and somebody's going to be like, oh, hey, that's your godfather. You haven't
Yeah.
seen him in 20 years. He owes you like $20,000 now or something like that. So I think that's where the Godfather comes from. But then obviously gratitude because
Sure.
about 7 years ago, not only did I already have gratitude, but then I was questioned for my gratitude and my
Mm.
practice of it. I had a girlfriend in 2014 or 2015, I think, and she always asked me, "It's like, so what are you grateful for and why?" And I said, "Well, I'm Filipino. You know my history. You know where the
Yeah.
lineage I've come from. I'm always grateful because I've been lucky in my life." And he goes,
Sure.
"No, no, no. But this moment in time, in this moment, what is the one thing or who's the one thing you're grateful for and why?
Right.
And I want to hold you accountable for that." And I was like, wow, okay. So she kind of flipped the switch on me. And it started making me start thinking. And so her and I were together, and it was a practice that we did every single day, whether we were together or not. And when we broke up, I think in 2015 on Valentine's Day, we broke
Oh.
up. And then a few months later, I just felt something empty
Yeah.
inside of me that nobody kept on holding me accountable
Mm.
for what I was grateful for. I kept on saying, I woke up in the morning and said, oh, I'm grateful for this, but nobody was holding me accountable. And
Sure.
so I decided to do what is now known as the daily gratitude, which is something that I've been doing since 2015. Really, I put it out on Instagram and just said, okay, this is why I'm grateful for and why.
Right.
And it made the world accountable, hold me accountable.
Right.
And then after that, ironically, so many people started DMing me and saying, "Hey, I wait for your gratitude, daily gratitude every morning. It makes me feel better. I'm all the way in Iran. I'm all the way in Brazil. I'm all the way in Africa." And I said, you know what? I'm just going to continue with this. I even had a guy that made a song. He was so inspired that he made a song called Gratitude, which I feel bad now. I don't remember who.
Right.
Hopefully he's listening here, and he'd be like, I made that song. Remember?
Right,
I'm like,
right,
oh my God.
right. But that's interesting, holding the accountable, right? And how you are asking the universe to hold you accountable and vice versa. I that's really great. Do we still talk to the ex-girlfriend? She sounds wonderful. My God.
Yeah, she's actually, you know what's funny? She was the first, and she is the first ex girlfriend that I've continued to be able to be friends with. She
Yeah.
now has a family of her own and stuff. And I think the beautiful thing is that our relationship, as tumultuous as it was, she was in the middle of a growth situation,
Mm,
and she just happened to take it out on me as she was growing. And I think that's a lesson for me to learn, that we, when we're in a relationship, we shouldn't be we shouldn't be the our each other's significant others coaches,
right,
in a sense. I think, or advisors. I think advisors, yes, but we shouldn't be coaching each other,
right.
directly, so to speak, unless it was something that you flip the hats with the switch and be like, okay, now today, right now is coaching sessions because it's a business coaching
Right.
situation. But from a relationship standpoint, you can't be like coaching somebody else, because then this is, or mentoring particularly, because then that means that you're not equally growing. You're like,
The
you're
balance is
it
off.
has to be separate.
Yeah.
The balance is off. The
Yeah.
balance is off. So I think for her and I, we continue to be in touch because she was such a significant part of my life. She taught me how to hold space,
Mm,
and she was one of the first people that says, she would, because she was Gemini, so she would be like,
Gemini.
Gemini. Yeah, she would be Gemini. She'd be like, I feel bad. Oh, okay. Let me give you a hug. Why are you holding me like this? I'm independent. I can do it myself. I can take care of myself. I was like, but you just asked me to hold you. It's like, yeah, but I just want you to be there for me. It's like, but I want to hold you. Like, what do you want? It's like, I want you to be there. Okay, I'll give you a hug. And then I leave her alone, and she'd be like, why aren't you like holding me and taking care of me?
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you
I
want?
totally
I'm
feel
so
for her.
confused.
That's the Gemini in me too.
Did you do that? Because I was so confused.
Yeah.
I was like, what do I do?
No.
Like, and then that's when she told me to hold space, just be there.
Just be there. No, I see it with my daughter too, because she's a Gemini as well. It's
Oh my
I know,
goodness.
my poor husband. And she'll want to hold our hand. And as soon as you go to hold her hand, then she's like, no, oh, like let go of my hand.
Oh,
Like, and I'm like, oh my God, like what do you want? Anyways, I'm like seeing myself way too much in her, and I'm like, oh my God, this is gonna be trouble. Like, but
this
it's
is gonna be
fun.
trouble,
But I
huh?
love that she taught you how to hold space. And I think that it's so wonderful, that you have opened up what gratitude means to so many people around the world, because you hear it from people, or I guess because I'm in this world where I'm like learning things from a kid's point of view. I'm now seeing
Hmm.
like how people may teach gratitude, right? And I'm like, okay, that's great. But it's as simple as holding space. It's as simple as breathing and meditating, and really just like kind of, going, I'm grateful that I have a roof on top of my head today.
Hmm.
Like that is something that we don't, it's not the little things like I'm grateful for, this diamond ring or whatever. No, it's truly like, it's the things of I'm so grateful that I have shelter. And I think that
Yeah.
you have to have an important milestone in your life to really appreciate that and really understand what it is to be grateful. And like for me, it was like, I have a healthy baby. I could not be more blessed and be more
Hmm.
grateful, because you see so many other families who may not have gone through such an easy, healthy baby, or their baby may not have made it, and so you really have to thank the universe for this stuff. And I think it's so important. So, just so you know, I think that there are a lot more people than you can even imagine that look forward to your gratitude, your morning gratitude. I mean, truly, because some days, I mean, I know I get up and I'm just like, I can't even breathe, right? I'm just so overwhelmed.
Hmm.
And just hearing one nice thing from a stranger can truly just change your whole perspective up. And I think that, not to put all the responsibility on you, but it's like what you're doing, it really truly helps so many people. Now, how did you get into the NBA? Because this is all a switch. And physical therapy, like I totally understand how you need that in the NBA and how you need sports medicine, because I have family in sports medicine. But how do you go, you know what? This is for me. This is the wild ride I'm ready for, because it's a wild ride.
Well, the ride is not only wild, but the story behind why that came to be is even wilder. For me, as a longtime multi-sport jock, but also happened to be a creative and an academic simultaneously, it was hard for me when I was growing up to really know what I really wanted to do
Sure.
and what my real calling was. And for a while, I thought, for a while, since I was little, my parents always forced me, in a sense, forced this relative term from any particularly very Asian parents. Um, Maybe the word's not forced, but highly suggested
Encouraged.
that I become a neurosurgeon from
Ah,
the time that I can
sure.
remember, because I remember being, I was in prep, I think, preparatory school or kindergarten, and there was a yearbook drive, and we were all our pictures in the yearbook, and I think the teacher asked me, okay, hey, Erwin, okay, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I asked my mom, hey, mom, we have to write this thing on the yearbook. What am I going to be grow up? My mom goes, "You're gonna be a neurosurgeon, honey." And I was like, "What's that?" Just write it
Just
down.
write it down.
I'm like,
She
oh,
was counting those bills. She was like, I know
oh,
them.
yeah. I was like, oh, okay, all right, because I think in their head they not only wanted what my grandpa Henry did in Lodi, New Jersey, but to even up it even higher than
Yeah.
what he did. Because like it's like Cadillac's fine, but for you, you're going Lamborghini,
You're
kid.
going Lamborghini. No, and as a new mom, I totally see that where you're like, you put like it's not even pushing, but like I know my parents were like, oh no, you're gonna be an engineer, like you're gonna be because my parents were both in technology and in computers, and they were
Oh
like, oh,
wow.
you're gonna invent this and you're gonna do that. And so I always thought, or I would be a lawyer. That's what they would always say. And I was like, but I'm singing and dancing. Here I am, like, woo, I'm an actress, very different. But I understand the enthusiasm behind
Suggestions.
suggesting, well, you'll have a much easier life than being a struggling like creative type, so I understand. I also, on a side note, grew up in a school in a town. I grew up in the Bay Area, and every one of my friends, I was immersed in Asian culture to the point where I didn't eat fish, I didn't eat meat. I was a vegetarian as a little kid, but I wanted so badly to have the Hello Kitty bento boxes that my mom would put my steamed veggies in there. So like for me, like I totally understand. My best friends are Filipino. Like I understand this. Like I understand this culture of the parents being like, no, this is what you're going to do and this is who you're going to be,
I know.
but it's great, and it puts almost like a drive in you to be like, okay, I mean, maybe it sets you up for failure for sometimes, but I mean, anyways, go on with your story. This is not about.
But you take it. But I think I was lucky enough to take it for what it is. And
Yeah.
growing up, I felt the bigger calling for me was when I was living in San Jose. I was there by myself because there was a massive insurgents happening in the Philippines, and at the time that the Marcos regime was going
Mm.
down and there was revolution happening, I had to be sent out and on a plane as an 8-year-old kid to San Jose, California, to live with my godfather for pretty much like a year and a half or so to
Wow.
escape that, and 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 that's the whole different story in itself, where I was almost kidnapped and killed, and with all the situations, but I didn't even know why I got sent to the U.S. to San
Right.
Jose. All I know is I'm on a plane by myself, and I thought it was going to be a nice long holiday. Uh, but I ended up going to school. I
Wow.
worked. I had a newspaper route that I worked and made $4 an hour. I like all to make some money.
Yeah.
But I remember watching. There's a time the MTV was just starting, but also CNN Sports started
Mm.
doing this thing where a guy named Fred Hickman started making funny comments when he would show and present sports
Right.
stuff. And I said, wow, I love sports. I love the fact that this guy is like ad libbing
Yeah.
how he does the sports news. First of all, there's news about sports. And back in the day, it's like, um, now to the NBA, where the Knicks triumph over the Celtics and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
That's how sports news is reported. But here's a guy I was like, well, yeah, that was a hard one.
Yeah.
The next should have done better than that. Or like this, it was like a fascinating thing. I was like, wow, so captivated by this and MTV happening at the
Yeah.
same time. And I said, that's what I want to be. I
Mm.
want to be, I want to be like a funny new sports anchor, that brings attitude and fun to reporting the love I have for sports. I remember growing up, and my father would have these, starting at 14, 15, my father would have these covert meetings slash mentorship sessions with me and my siblings. And they would happen around brunch time on Sunday, where we would eat, the newspaper would come out, he would be reading the newspaper, and we're all eating brunch. And then when my father's done eating and we're all still in the table, newspaper will go down, a cigarette will spark, he'll take a breath, and he'll just ask one question to one person in the table. It's a round table too, and he'd be like, "Erwin, what's your plans for the next 5 to 10 years?"
Incredible.
And I'm like 14, going like, I don't know. I just want to play sports.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. But then that would be a cue for my brother and my sister to kind of just like escape the brunch table.
Oh my gosh.
So if it's somebody else, if somebody else gets picked, sure. I got to see some friends. Yeah, and if I don't want to be in the hot seat, my friend says if they're calling me, I'm going to go to the park just to escape the situation. I have homework. So this was a thing. And so it was funny. I told my dad, I want to be like Fred Hickman. I want to be in MTV, or I want to be in sports. And my father would be like, do you know the percentage of people that make it in that world? Less than 1%. Yeah. You know, and the worst that ever happened to you, that I was so afraid if that is that direction you went to, is that you end up being a purple velour suit wearing MC of a cruise ship that's introducing the Filipino band that is the cover band at that cruise ship.
That's so specific.
My parents love cruises. I don't understand how that became the specific image he had in his head. The purple velour suit wearing MC to the Filipino cover band in a cruise ship.
Well, he must have seen that. That's where it came.
Yeah. Like, if you don't make it in the broadcasting industry, that's where you're going to end up.
It's one or the other.
What? That was such a weird thought process for me when he said that.
Oh my God. Wow.
And then he goes, but then look at your Lolo Henry. Not only did he have a new Cadillac every 2 years, he helped the people of his neighborhood, and they helped him get a green card because of it.
Right.
And this made me be like, that's what happens when you become a physician.
Yeah. You're like, so how do I mix being a physician and being a velour-wearing jumpsuit cruise ship director? Where's the middle of that? That's the word I'm going for.
This is where I am now.
That's where you are right now.
This is where I am, where I'm in the world of sports. I'm not a neurosurgeon. I'm still in the medical profession, but my parents have no idea what I really do.
Wow.
Meanwhile, when I'm not in the world of sports, I'm on a stage emceeing, wearing a velour coat, but introducing,
mental health
thought leaders from around the world.
Yeah. You kind of like came up with the best like intermediate like job like of all time. And I think that it's like the coolest job that you have too. Were you inspired by my inspiration in life, Phil Jackson? And for those who may not know who Phil Jackson is, Phil Jackson was an NBA player, but also
how do you not know?
Well, I feel like a lot of people don't know sports,
true.
And the reason why I feel like became so famous, right, to maybe those who are not in the sports world, is because he truly made the number one team of all time with Jordan, Pippen, Rodman, like the Bulls, and then he did the Lakers. And he has the whole mindset of meditation, of grounding oneself, of being in the moment. And I mean, that is how you win those NBA rings. I mean, I'm sorry, it's how you do it. You see it. There's so many times where I just want to shake the shit out of LeBron James, and I'm like, just take a breath right now. Let's same with Jimmy Butler. I'm like, come on, you know this, let's go, and you can see kind of just the absolute focus of those players who have been trained under Phil Jackson. So seeing that, when you first started working for the NBA, were you always working for the New York Knicks, or were you working for other teams as well? So you've only been Knicks like through and through.
From a basketball perspective, I was with the Pirates. From a baseball perspective, for 8 years prior to that.
Wow.
So I was 8 years as a Pittsburgh Pirate. took 2 years off to start a social enterprise called KINETIQ, which basically allowed me to do the 4-hour work week, travel around the world, create as much impact as I can to the places that don't have readily access to sports medicine education, but also give me an excuse to go salsa dancing all over the
Oh my
planet. So
God. I love
for 2
Oh
years.
my God, I love
Yeah.
Look at these like little
And
like
then
gems
and
you're
then
dropping.
basketball.
And then what? And then you went to the
And then basketball came to my
and then
life. Yeah.
basketball came to your life. And were you a big basketball fan? Was that your like number one
I
sport, you
mean,
think?
I'm Filipino. Filipino, it's God,
Yeah.
it's Manny Pacquiao at the height of Manny Pacquiao, and then
And then
basketball.
back.
And we are a rabid basketball loving country. And it's funny because it was actually chronicled. There's a book called Pacific Rims that a Fulbright scholar went to the Philippines to investigate why Filipinos love basketball so much.
Yeah.
And he looked at the history, he went to the library, he went to the small villages and towns. I mean, he spent 4 years there and
Wow.
wrote a book called Pacific Rims to chronicle all of that and just realizing why we're so rabid. It's such a
Oh
fascinating
my gosh, I can't wait to
discovery.
read this
Why?
book.
Yeah. So it's such a fun, and he's a guy from Detroit. His name is Rafe. His name is Rafe. But he calls himself in Filipino uh, Tio Paeng, which is basically Uncle
Oh
Raf,
my
Uncle Rafe,
gosh.
so to speak,
Oh
which
my
is
gosh.
really kind of funny.
Well, this was
And yeah, so we
a
love
dream
basketball.
job. So, I mean, at some point, your parents must have been like, "This is the NBA. Like, he's not messing around at this point. This is incredible."
Yeah,
Yeah.
even though my parents, my mom particularly, still did not understand what I did in the NBA,
Mm.
even as I saw the job, because my mom, right after my first year, would be like, "Honey, I have a question for you," and I said, What is it, Mama?" He goes, I don't understand what you do. They pay you to watch basketball games? I go, yeah, I watch you all the time on TV. You're wearing a suit and you're watching a game, but they pay you for this? I go, well, Mom, most of what I do is like really before
Yeah.
when I'm not in a suit and after when I'm off of the suit,
Yeah.
to take care of the players. But I don't understand. Where's the hospital? I go, Mom, there's no hospital. I mean, there's a hospital, but on
You don't have to
emergencies
go.
only. But if the players are injured, they don't go straight to hospital. I go, no, Mama. We have like a clinic in the
Yeah.
back, and and we see them there. We have our surgeons there with us. We have our primary care person too. We even have EMS
Yeah.
if there's like a big situation.
Yeah.
We have to go. But how about the equipment? You have like X-rays or something like this, and it's like we actually
Yeah.
do. We have all these X-rays. We have all these things. We have things to check on an emergency whether the guy can play or not. I, but I still don't understand it.
Oh,
They pay you for this? And I'm like, yeah, they
they
do
do.
quite handsomely too. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Oh
I
my
don't know. This is not. I don't understand this, but okay. As long as you're happy,
As long as you're happy. Yeah, as long as you're happy and as long as you're making a paycheck, you know what I mean? And it's coming home, like,
yes,
exactly, and you're taken care of.
exactly.
And what is it
It's exactly
exactly
that.
like? What was the selling point how you got the job? I mean, for someone maybe who's listening right now who is looking to do something that's, in their wheelhouse, but to kind of make the impact to be like, no, this is why I'm your person. Was there something that you brought, like, which I know, which is what it is, it's like you bring this whole gratitude, spirituality, like grounding, meditation vibe to it. But is that kind of what you showed to get that job, to seal that deal?
Well, funny story. I was in the middle of my 2 year hiatus, traveling around the world, doing the 4-hour work week, and on my birthday on July 2nd, 2014, I woke up in the morning. I was in Prague.
Mm.
I gave gratitude to the universe for allowing me to live such a fun life and work this 4-hour work week and travel around the world salsa dancing. But I said, there's one thing that's missing that I want to wish for on my birthday, and it's the vision that I had when I was 18 years old, which was stark and clear, that woke me up in the middle of the night, which was the vision of me standing in an arena surrounded by thousands of people with the lights and sounds and basketballs jumping up and down, and even the smell of cologne and popcorn mixed together. And I said, if you can fulfill this dream of mine that I've had since 18, I'll never ask you for anything else, whoever you are up there.
Right.
And that's what I asked for. And so that was on July 2nd, 2014. And so I woke up that morning, I gave gratitude to the universe. I decided, instead of popping champagne and making it rain like I've normally had on my birthday, I decided to give hugs.
Mm,
So I went to the middle of the street in Prague pre-COVID
yeah.
with consent,
Yeah.
just to let everyone knows. And me and my two Czech friends, we went into the middle of the clock tower square in Prague, and with a GoPro in my head, we decided to give hugs. And we gave about 300 hugs in about 3 hours to random people. And at the end of the night, an American guy, weirdly enough, who worked for UPS or FedEx, was over there, and he was kind of already a bit inebriated. And he was like, "Hey, man." I was like, "Hey, what's up, dude?" I was like, "I really enjoy what you're doing." I was like, you know, I was like, "Oh, you mean giving hugs on my birthday?" He goes, "No, yeah, yeah, yeah. But, you know, there's 30, 31 days in a month. And, most of those days, they're unremarkable. They're not memorable.
Oh.
But you know what? Today, out of the 31 days in this month that I'm having, I don't think I'll forget this.
Oh my
So I just want to say thank you."
gosh.
And I was like, it gave me such a joy
Sure.
that he shared that to me. And it just filled me up so much that, the only thing to do that night when the sun came down was to go salsa dancing again. And 2 days later, I got a call. I got a call from a buddy of mine who had been working at that time for Red Bull, and he was a consultant for an NBA team. And he says, "Where are you right now?" I was like, "I'm in Prague giving hugs." And he goes, "Do you want a job in the NBA?" I was like, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
Um, Depends. What are you talking
Yeah.
about here?
Yeah. Do they want me to
I
be a
try to keep
player?
cool. And yeah, that started a cascade. Within a 2 week span, I got 2, 3 week span. I got calls from 4, 5 teams.
Wow.
I didn't send a CV anywhere. I didn't apply for any job. I don't know who ever recommended my name, but apparently I was the free agent du jour at
Wow.
that point in time. And once my name came out, everybody wanted to have a conversation with me. And it was funny because it was the time that I let go of that.
Right.
It wasn't when I was forcing, because I had, prior to that, about 6 months or so prior to that, I had 2 interviews with 2 different teams, and I was like, I want this job so much. It's like I was depending
Yeah.
my life on it, and it was 2 teams, and I ended up getting second place on both those jobs. I didn't end up getting the gig for both jobs. I was second place, and it just told me that maybe, number one, if I want something, have the intention with pure heart, but
Sure.
then let the universe do its job, number one. And number two, maybe those 2 locations weren't the place for me to be in.
Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't.
Because why? Because I deserve to be somewhere where it's bigger and brighter.
Yeah. And where it's the best of the best,
Yeah. And so what's funny about that is that, when I was, when New York called me, I was actually in Brussels, and I was like, okay, it's like, okay, you know what? I know you're on the way to Miami, because I had an interview with the Heat and Eric Spoelstra, who's with the Filipino,
Of
half Filipino
course,
guy. He was like,
yes.
"I come over here," and then he was like, "Before you fly there, we're going to intercept you, pass by New York, change your ticket, and then you can go to Florida after that." And so, okay, so changed my ticket, picked me up in a limo, found myself in New York, and then I got interviewed, and basically was like, "You're the only person we're looking at, and
Wow.
you have to tell us whether you want this or not." And I was like, "Excuse me? Well, I still have like 4 other teams."
Yeah.
They're like, "No, no, no. Well, I'm just going to make you think a little bit, but know that you're the only person we want,
Yeah.
and
You have
you
to make
can
a choice.
go do different things, or you can just,
Stay.
say yes now." And I was like, "Can I at least get 24
Yeah.
hours?" you know,
Right.
it was the craziest thing. And I said, and the reason why New York was my choice was, number one, it was in a city where a lot of people who took care of me in the 2 years I was traveling the world would likely go to, even as a layover.
Right. Right.
And if I can take care of them and show them the gratitude, and take care of them and show them the gratitude that I could for them taking care of me when I was in their place, I would do it immediately, because it's a place that they're
Incredible.
probably going to go to.
Yeah.
Number two, I had 2 friends that were already in the team that were good friends of mine, who literally called me when the opportunity showed up from their own offices and be like, "Yo, where are you, man?" Like, they were calling me simultaneously, "Where are you?" When somebody got moved over, I was like, suddenly like the spot open. I
Right.
was like, "Where are you?" And they're like, "Well, just call. There's something going on. We can't really tell you officially, but
Right.
there's something going on. I'm like, what the heck? Number three, you know, I was told that it would be a place that would be a good place for me for all my philanthropic work
Mm.
because, being part of New York and being part of the society, if you want people to contribute to your nonprofit, there's no better place than New York for people to write that check
Yeah.
and give you the money,
Right.
especially if you're in that situation. And then number four, but probably more importantly, it was a chance to work with my idol,
Who's
Phil Jackson. It was like, it was a dream
yeah.
of mine. When I was following, just like you, following Chicago and
Oh my
LA,
God, I'm gonna cry. Like I can't imagine.
following LA, Chicago and LA, I always wondered, but was it Michael and Kobe that really liked or followed? It actually wasn't. It was
Phil.
Phil because he was a coach, he was a teacher, he
Mm.
was a guru, he was a Sherpa, he was a guide, he was a mentor, and I felt such a calling to be with him. And even though for the first month he didn't talk to me, he just watched me for the first month. I just knew that this was the right place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, what happened after the second month?
Well, after the first month, he literally during training camp, he literally the first time he talked to me was I was crouching down to get ice bags for one of our players, and he literally he
I
hovered
know.
above me
Yeah, he's huge.
and was like, "Well, hello, Erwin. I heard that you were the person to speak to regarding the many ailments in my life." And I was like,
Oh,
"Mr. Jackson, what the heck?" I was like, it was kind of scary. I
Mr.
was like,
Jackson.
"Mr. Jackson?" I was like, "Sir?" And he was like, "Yes, I've had many things happen to me in my old age, and heard you were the person to speak to." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." I mean, it was weird for me because he was my boss, but at the same time, I was starstruck
Sure, sure.
because he was my idol.
Right.
But at the same time, I was like, I have to be
I'm here to
professional.
do a
Like I
job.
was
Right.
very confused. I was very confused what to do.
Yeah, right.
All I knew was one of the first things I did when I actually got the job with the Knicks, I said I needed a haircut
Mm.
because Phil wanted everybody to look nice and neat. And that was one of the things. That's funny. But anyways, yeah, and there began our relationship.
Wow.
Really, for 3 years, he was the reason why I became from a staff member to at that point the head of the Knicks medical and performance staff. And our conversations were magical.
Wow.
It was like I feel like I could write a chapter in my book that I'm writing just purely on the conversations with the Zen master.
What is something obviously you don't want to share such personal things, but what is something that you could leave us with, or more importantly, me with, like something that was so inspiring that maybe Phil said to you that really, kind of, I don't know, like made you want to wake up that morning or something? Because I feel like he would have those kinds of things to say to somebody.
For me, one of my favorite things, which I feel bad now when they changed our phone systems, was that there was a recording that he left on my office phone, where when we were starting to work with each other personally, I was taking care of his health, I was helping him with his exercises and stuff like that, and we were just about to start the process, and he left me a message just to let me know when we would start it. And he would be like, the message went like, "Hello, Erwin. It's Phil Jackson. It's Friday. I think it's Friday. But would it be okay if we met on Monday for the stuff?" And I'm like, and basically, and then he'd be like, "It is Friday, right?
Oh my God.
Okay." And then he just clicked. And I was like, and the reason why that was so valuable in my life, because it reminded me that he was still human. That
Right.
as much as a genius of who he was, this Yoda figure in my life, and I was lucky to be Luke Skywalker. He was still a quirky human
Right.
being
Who couldn't remember
that
what day it
did
was.
what was confused whether it was a
Right.
Friday or a Thursday or a Saturday. And I will never forget that. And I thought that the phone systems would hold us forever,
Oh.
but unfortunately, when they changed the phone systems, they just eliminated everything.
But yeah, I mean, that's so true. It's like, I think that we always put on a pedestal our idols so much. And that's why I think it always comes like, don't meet your idols, right? A lot of the time they can be assholes, which I've been lucky to meet a bunch of idols who were not assholes. So I've been very lucky.
Yeah.
Except for, and I'm going to say my story to you because only you're going to appreciate this. The only person that was ever rude to me and refused to give me an autograph, and I've talked about it in Maxim, FHM, I've talked about it in every interview, and I'm going to talk about it here, was Scottie Pippen. And
What?
yep. And it was, I think I was like maybe 6 years old or something. And I would always go when I would visit my grandpa. My grandpa had tickets to the Chicago Bulls. And because that's where my parents were, my mom is from and my grandparents are from. So we would always go. So for me, I was so obsessed with, long story short, with Dennis Rodman. He was my obsession. I hated Barbies. Anytime
Of course he was.
Anytime someone gave me a Barbie, I would cut the Barbie's hair, and I would magic marker whatever his hair was of the game. I would like that's what I'm talking about. Like that's my obsession, right? Okay.
Like the circles, like when he did the circles.
Yes, like when he did the leopard, when he did the green hair,
The
like
leopard or whatever.
the
Yeah.
bride Barbie when he dressed up as a bride. Like I had it all.
God.
So when one time we had gone to dinner after one of the games and all the players happened to be out and I had said, oh my God, I want an autograph, and Rodman was an angel. I have stories for days about him, but and Jordan was an angel. And my grandpa asked Scotty for an autograph for me if I could have one. I went up and he says, I don't do autographs after 8. And it was like
after 8,
yeah, like whatever time it was, and he was like, come on, like just she's a little girl, like, he's like, no, like that. And he was so rude. And so I've never let it down because I can still remember I had such a visceral reaction of being like, are you kidding me?
Wow.
And like to this day, I can't stand Scottie Pippen because of it. Like, because I just was like, you were so mean to a little kid, like, and so anyways, long story short, that's my internal dig to Scottie Pippen of don't meet your idols. But,
Wow.
but everyone says he's lovely, so I'm not sure. Like maybe it was an off day, I'll say.
Yeah, and you never know where people are, especially if it's like post game
Totally.
and stuff like that. It's
Totally.
like, wait, what? So this wasn't at a game?
No. It was afterwards at a like he was walking into a restaurant, and everyone was like, "Oh my God!" Everyone was giving autographs to all the kids that were like there, Anyways, so we'll forgive him, but I'm still hung up about it. Okay, we're still hung up.
Wow, the fact that it's a visceral reaction
Still.
it contains in your is very
I'm 36
fascinating.
years old. I have not let this go. Like, what is wrong with me?
30 years.
It's a
Oh my
long time.
God.
But neither here nor there. We're going to ignore that story because I feel like I've said that story so many times. But I'm just like so excited that you got to experience this and that you did meet your idol and that he is so wonderful. But it's just a reminder that they are human beings. Like we are all human beings. We all make mistakes. It happens. Like it absolutely happens. So I absolutely love that you shared that. What has been your number one thing that you have experienced or learned while you were at this huge position at the Knicks?
I've said this a number of times now, but like I think for me initially, when it comes to two things, I think the greatest career moment in my life is when I was placed. A collage of me was put on the jumbotron at Madison Square Garden, and then I was given airtime for about 20-30 seconds on the jumbotron on Filipino Heritage Night.
Oh, wow.
They just did a little collage with Eric Spoelstra, with Jalen Green, with Jordan Clarkson, and then it'd be like, and with from your New York Knicks, Erwin Benedict Valencia. He's the blah 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 blah, and then this whole collage thing, and it was in Filipino Heritage Night, and I think a quarter of the arena was Filipinos because
wow.
we were doing a Filipino Heritage Night, and so the cheers were like pretty massive, and I was like, wow! Not only that I felt that, for me the funniest part was there was an extra time, and I know the events director at the bottom. She goes, so what do we do now? There's some dead time. It's like, oh, just put it on Erwin, and like the camera just focused on me, multiple angles, and one of my players elbowed me and goes like, dude, I think you're on the jumbotron like live right now. And it was in the middle of a timeout, and I looked back, I was like, oh my God. And my first instinctual reaction was to pull up the peace sign like this,
Aw.
pull up the peace sign, and then switch over. It's like, oh, this is the moment to drop the BTS Korean hearts. And I did,
Oh my
I did this
gosh.
like, and then like,
Was the crowd
and then
going
everyone just
wild?
chuckled.
Yes.
They were just chuckling. They were like, of course you would do peace and the Korean
Oh my
BTS
gosh.
hearts. That
Wow.
was hilarious. Um, and that was a pure, that I will never forget that moment in my life. That was the highlight of my professional career.
Right.
And that happened this year.
Wow.
And I get kind of like, I get emotional about that
Sure.
because it made me realize not only was I valued as a Nick, but as valued as a leader and a community member of the Filipino community,
Yeah.
particularly in New York City, and
Oh,
how much respect I had for that. And so that is probably from an external standpoint was the greatest moment in my professional career. But the biggest lesson that I learned, not only being with the Knicks, but also with the almost 2 decades working in elite sport, is that we, as teachers, as guides, as Sherpas, as mentors, as gurus, all we can do to the athletes that we serve is merely plant the seed.
mm,
And whatever technique it is that we're doing, whatever suggestion, meditation practice, whatever it is that we teach them in order for them to either A, maintain, or B, be better or perform better, all we can do is plant the seed.
right.
We can't force them to grow. We can't pull their strings up so that their roots get bigger faster. We can't over water them. We can't make sure we blow wind and sunshine them. They have to do it
Right.
themselves, and in their own time grow. And when there's a calamity that hits, yeah, well, if it gets too hot, then we'll add a little water. If it gets too windy, then we put a little shelter. But we can't hold their hand the entire time
Right.
because they have to make their choices and make the decisions of where, when, and where they'll grow. And so I think this is such a big lesson for a lot of coaches, a lot of people in the medical field, in the world of sports, because they're their own individuals that are still growing and going through their own process.
Right.
And sometimes we try to accelerate that process too much when in fact it's going to get there.
Hmm.
They just need to maintain and do what they're doing and then do them. And then one day when they're ready, then they'll ask for help because now they're ready to ask for help to then elevate themselves. And I think for
Wow.
me, that's the biggest lesson. For so many people from the outside looking in, trust me, in the past almost 20 years, people going like, well, hey man, I know you do the meditation stuff, but I can bring my style of meditation. I've been doing my meditation for 5 years. I have a brand,
Yeah.
and I could go into your team, and maybe
Sure.
we could do a 20-minute, 30-minute meditation. And I was like, yeah, first of all, they're going to be like, people, my players are going to be like, who the heck is this
Yeah.
guy? Number two is like, now you're just going to destroy the entire rapport I've created with the players with regards to the importance of doing some of these alternative things. So it's kind of interesting. It's like, from the outside looking in, people feel so excited that they can do something. But when in fact, it takes time, as with anything.
Mm.
Some people that finally asked me to lead them in meditation on the court, that was a 4-year process.
Wow.
It isn't like on that day itself that like, oh, we're going to do this. No. It took 4 years of a relationship for them to trust me
Of
enough.
course, a bonding.
Yeah, of bonding, but also for them to be that plant that finally grew up, and for that plant to be like, yeah, can you give me a little sunshine?
Wow.
In a sense.
Now, what is the next step for you in the next,
Mm.
you know,
The next evolution
I would
of
say so.
EBV, Elvis
Yeah,
Benedict
I would
Valencia,
say
as you
so.
must. For me, I need to take some time off first, like truly take 6 months to a year off. And I mean that, meaning that like especially when I go back to the Philippines, everyone's going to be like, hey, can you do this talk?
Well, you have so many godchildren that you're going to have to take care of as well.
And I think I've said no already early enough
Sure.
because I said, look, I purposely did this where I am right now, this next step, because I want some time for myself.
Sure.
I want to value my overall, my well-being, my mental, spiritual, emotional, and physical well-being. And I want to honor that first and get back to a good place completely. So I'm ready. Number two, I think within the time, and particularly because my intention for 2024, ironically, is space.
Mm.
And that came from Burning Man, which is usually when I set my intentions, which is around August, September. And my intention there, which was a pilot for what 2024 was going to be, was to open myself up to be loved fully
Oh, I love that.
in every possible way. And space in 2024 now means not only space to love
Yeah.
myself, but also open myself up to love, to have a true meaningful relationship,
Mm.
to then in turn have that become, maybe turn into a family. And I think for so long, being in professional sport, it's almost impossible.
To do
If
that.
you go into professional sport single, it's hard to get that situation,
Right.
particularly if you're a high performer. If you will go in, you're going to be with your partner and you're going through the challenges
Sure,
together.
sure, sure.
But if you're going in, you're now riding a train that's going 100 miles an
You
hour,
can't get
and
off.
somebody you
Yeah.
meet be like, hey, either A, they're up for the adventure only for a couple of weeks, months, and then they're like, okay, you're just gone too
Yeah.
much. Number one, or number two, they're in the same boat where they're traveling around the world, they're have startup, they're flying all over the place, and then you become business
Right.
partners where you open your calendar and be like,
What
hey,
day
when's a good
works?
time for us
Right.
to go on a quick holiday? What day
Right.
works?
Right.
And I've been told by some amazing thought leaders from around the world, relationship experts who asked me, "Do you really believe that that's a relationship?"
Yeah.
And I said, "You're right. It's not."
It's not a relationship at all. I mean, it's
Yeah,
not. And and then throw kids in it and it's even harder, you know? And so I think that what you're doing by creating this space and finding a new version of yourself, it's like, you're finding another layer is what you're doing. You're going to experience that. And I think it's so wonderful that you're going back to the Philippines and that you're going to get to experience so much in this state of your life. I think that that's what's really
yeah,
cool is like going back and you've been experiencing the different ways and different roles that you've, obtained. And now it's like, this is who you are in this moment and just enjoy it.
because in if by 2024 it would have been almost exactly 25 years
Wow.
since I last lived in the Philippines.
Wow. Wow.
So it's been kind of crazy, and who I've become in that a quarter century of my life is a completely
Of
different person.
course.
I've achieved the dreams that I wanted to achieve. Now I can share my wisdom
Yeah.
back home to those that need it, but also at the same time, find opportunities to continue to serve, not only the people in my community and people back home, but also from a global
Right.
aspect. How can I share these stories that
Right.
I've had or this bit of wisdom in order to help people's lives? And I think people always ask me, okay, what is really next? What's the ethos of what's going to be next? For me, it's supporting those that support
Mm,
others. That's my biggest thing, and I say that because as somebody that's worked in the professional sport industry for almost 20 years, I always took care of people, the athletes I served, but then nobody really took care of
right.
me.
Right. Right.
Like I had to always come to work with a smiley
Yeah.
face and like nothing's happening because me and my staff would set the tone for how the players would
Sure.
feel.
Sure.
If you're negative Nancy, the players will
Oh,
feel that right
of
away, and they're
course.
going to practice or a game in a bad mood. So now no matter what's happening to your life, you have to put a smile on your
Yeah.
face and be like, okay, I'm going to do
And I'm
this.
here for you.
But deep
Let's do
inside, you're
it.
burning.
Yep. Yeah. And it burns out.
So for me, it's going to be my mission to create something, whether it's a business, whether it's content, whatever, to help support those that support
Right.
others.
Oh, I absolutely love that. This kind of goes into my final question. But what is your emotional support?
That's therein lies the question.
Mm,
I was asked at a university. I did a talk at Dominican University, which is the PT department there, the students there, and the diversity club invited me. And somebody asked me about this, like how what keeps you grounded or what keeps you supported. And I said, two things or three things. One, it's my daily
yeah.
practice. My daily practice gives me the support I needed for myself to be like, okay, as long as I get my meditation in, as long as I take the first thing I do when I first wake up in the morning, even before I move or open my eyes, I put my hand in my heart, put my other hand on top of my right hand. I take a nice deep breath, and I say, I'm so grateful that I can take another breath this morning
Mm,
and be alive, so I can continue to create impact in this world.
I love
That's how I start my day. And then I write in my journal, I do my meditation, I do my dance and movements and stuff like
yeah.
that. So that's one. Number two, family. When things get crazy or I get overwhelmed, having my brother 45 and his family and my nephew is 45 minutes away from me in Connecticut has been a
Oh
godsend this
yeah.
entire time. I mean, to them, I'm just Uncle E. To
Oh,
them, I'm the uncle that comes in
you're the
who's
cool
ready to play
uncle.
basketball, who's ready to destroy them in
Yeah.
basketball, but also get destroyed when they play
Yeah.
hockey. And then I also make them run around, do like tournaments
Yeah.
and all that other
Yeah.
stuff. So, but I'm also very disciplined. I'm the guy that does a lot of discipline. I'm actually getting mad at them and scream at them, and which is funny because my brother doesn't. And so I'm the fun uncle, but almost I'm also disciplinarian
Yeah.
because it's also not my kid. So it's
Yeah.
like,
It's like
so,
wipe your hands
so,
clean.
so I'm
Walk
like,
away.
okay, I've done my
Yeah. Yeah.
job. I'm out,
Yeah.
and so, but them going to them, I'm just Uncle E. It
Mm,
doesn't matter work for the Knicks or it doesn't matter all the things that I do. I'm Uncle E that destroys them on the basketball court and just has fun with them, but also makes sure that they're disciplined and supports them. And I'm there at their hockey games and all that stuff. Number two. And number three, having a good community. You are the five people you spend most of
yes.
your time with, and having an epic group of people that I can count on, especially during the times that I'm going through some challenges, for me is the biggest source of support I have. And I think one of those groups um, is really the people that I've met through Mind Valley.
Mm,
You know, as somebody who's been part of the Mind Valley, community for 10 years, they've provided so much support, not only in the dark days, but also when they know that I need champions to lift me up and say like, hey, you deserve something bigger than this. And I think it's part of them in my head that said, hey, I know you love this NBA thing. I know this makes you feel kind of nice and fuzzy because the Filipino people love you because of it, but you have a greater calling.
yeah.
Your message needs to go beyond basketball.
Yeah.
And I think having them to really champion me in this has really helped me slowly evolve to who I am today.
Mm. Oh, I love that. And I adore you and I just love you. I think you are such a light in this world. And I just get so excited when I see your name and I was just
Aw.
looking forward to this so much. You have no idea. I was just really, truly looking forward to this. This is such a wonderful, important conversation, and so many people are going to learn so much from this. So thank you so much. How can everyone follow you along on the next journey?
Ooh, well, I'm going to be in ghost mode
Okay.
first. That's what's going to happen. Ghost mode / monk mode. That's what's going to
Oh, I
happen
love
first,
it.
probably for a little bit. Channeling my inner best DJ Shetty's voice in my head, going like, "Okay, be a monk
Yeah.
first for a month or 2 months. Just be like in this. Of course, a bit different because I'm going to be like in a little bamboo hut in the beach in the
Yeah.
Philippines somewhere, fishing and climbing coconut trees. That's but they can follow me on my socials and on all my socials from
Great.
Instagram, Twitter, um, YouTube, LinkedIn are all Erwin B Valencia. All of those links up there. I think more than anything else to support my two nonprofits. One is the Grasshopper Project, growing legs, so to speak, and there's a lot of stuff we can do with that from a mentorship side. And then Gratitude Gang, which is basically a community that helps with from a mental health standpoint, and so that will be propagating a lot in the Philippines. So the websites for both Gratitude Gang will come up soon because we're finishing the revisions for Grasshopper Project, and then my own website erwinvalencia.com is currently under revision, and so when that pops out it'll be a whole different version of me, and so I'm
Oh,
excited for that
I
to come out.
love it. Well, I'll have all the links down below. Thank you so much.